Well, the office of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has strongly rebuked allegations that Israel is trying to permanently displace Palestinians from Gaza. The Jordanian foreign minister made the accusation at the Doha Forum in Qatar this week. The Prime Minister called the claim false and dangerous. So can Israel destroy Hamas completely? And if it can, what will a post-Hamas Gaza look like? Ruth Wasserman Landa, former member of the Knesset and former diplomatic envoy to Egypt, is with me in the studio. And I'm delighted to welcome from Manama tonight Abdallah Al-Junaid, Bahraini columnist and geopolitical analyst. Thank you to you both. The United States and the Palestinian Authority want Ramallah, want the PA to take control of Gaza. Netanyahu says no way. He has said that the PA is trying to destroy Israel step by step. So who will govern Gaza, Abdallah?
I believe that we are here today. It's because of Netanyahu doctrine for the last 15 years. So let's just revise or look back and see exactly what was there to prevent such a thing taking place. It was purely Netanyahu policies. And this is where the Palestinians, the Israelis are paying price. And the whole region is further destabilized.
All right. Ruth, would you like to respond to that?
I think that the Palestinian Authority in its current situation, given the incitement in the school books and the unstable situation within the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, cannot possibly take upon itself the Gaza Strip. We have seen in 2015, when the IDF left the Gaza Strip and the Hamas took over, they were adamantly against the Fatah operatives, shooting them in the kneecaps and throwing them out of the windows. I don't see any reason to believe that they will be willing 1 second to act otherwise, provided the fact that the Palestinian Authority at the current point is not strong enough to even govern and stabilize the West Bank. How are they going to take on a situation in the Gaza Strip with even a few thousand Hamas operatives left, even if the IDF does a huge job in eliminating the vast majority of the Hamas operatives the day after? It would need a reconsideration of the entire educational system, making away with the incitement, with the indoctrination, and becoming more stable. This cannot be done by the current Palestinian Authority.
A word on the incitement, Abdallah, but also if I could get your reaction to comments by the Palestinian Prime Minister, Mohammed Shtayyeh. He says Hamas cannot be destroyed, and he actually wants it to kind of be folded in, or what's left of it, into the PA. He'll be going to Doha to ask the Qataris to give his organisation the cash that previously went to Hamas. What are your thoughts on that?
Before that, can I just remark on what Ruth said? It's so typical Israelis to go back to the education books. What about the form of Hamas within the Israeli, the far right settlers? Aren't they exactly the equivalent of Hamas in terms of inciting hatred, spitting on every every Is this the Israel that?
But not spitting on every Christian. That was one example. But yes,
I would love to answer that.
It's not. Yeah.
Finish, Abdallah.
It's not the matter. It's not the matter of the books. What we need, that both sides need to take a step, and instead of just continuing blaming the other side, we're not going to find a way out. You want to continue with this? Fair enough. We're going to leave it to you and the Palestinians continue killing each other. And then when you finish, please come back and ask us, what did this lead to? You want to continue? By all means, go ahead. Okay? It's not the matter of the PA. The PA is there. And they are in this dire state. It's because of the 16 years of Netanyahu. He crippled that organization, and you need to take, some sort of responsibility for that.
All right, let Ruth respond.
I would love to respond, sir. First of all, I'm a politician belonging to the opposition to Netanyahu, so I have absolutely zero interest in condoning the policy that was promoted in the last years, especially allowing the Qataris to pay money, stacks of money to the Hamas terrorist organization, and condoning the weakening of the Palestinian Authority. This is not my policy. However, I cannot put my hand in the sand and ignore the horrid incitement in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank. If we kill every single terrorist organization,
would you condemn the same far-right Israeli settlers?
I will answer that in 1 minute, sir. In 1 second, I will not run away from condemning anybody who you ask me about. But I would like to just return to a single fact. There is huge incitement in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank. If we kill every single Hamas operative, every single terrorist, and this incitement goes on, the next generation will be terrorists as well. The Bahrainis will suffer from this. The UAE will suffer. Certainly, first and foremost, the Israelis and the Fatah, who the Hamas hate more than the Jews, which is very difficult, but it's true. So what I would like to say is, yes, I condemn those specific right-wing extremist settlers. Not all settlers are like that at all. But those right-wing extremist settlers that do illegal acts in the West Bank, I do condemn them. I think that they should be arrested, and many of them are arrested. To liken what we have to Hamas is completely irrelevant. We do not rape, kill, massacre, carnage, burn alive, kidnap. There is no likening whatsoever. Does this make the works of those specific, small amount but very bad, specific settlers promoting illegal acts against the West Bank Palestinians? I completely condemn them. Completely.
Abdallah. I should point out, Abdallah, that the Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas has not condemned Hamas for October 7th, by the way.
Listen, the issue here is not Mahmoud Abbas condemning Hamas or otherwise. For us, is we need the Israelis and the Palestinians to bypass every possible, official channel and continue talking to each other. I just returned from Europe, where we had Israeli and Palestinians sitting together and talking to each other. They were not officials, but they definitely have the best interest of Israel and the Palestinians at the same time. They see the only way out of this mess is not to the likes of Netanyahu and his coalition to remain in power and represent Israel, nor Mahmoud Abbas for his accepting, blaming everybody for his shortfulness and, just to get away with it. No, we need a proper representation of the Israelis and the proper representation of the Palestinians, and for both to see that there is no simple way out of the tragedy that we are going through. We are talking about close to 18,000 Gaza killed. The issue of them, Shtaya or anybody else going to Doha speaking in the forum, it's not going to be represent any way out. What we need is for the people on the ground and also for Israel to benefit from listening to its regional friends and partners and cease operation, and let's build on something that's going to be serving the future of the relation. You're talking about, in your report about the UAE presenting a UN Security Council resolution. Now, this is, I believe, it's one of those final warnings you're going to be receiving from the region. If you don't stop and listen to us, that could definitely jeopardize the whole thing.
All right, Ruth.
So, sir, if a country or an entity near, God forbid, Bahrain was to rape, gang rape, kidnap, kill, massacre, burn alive, cut the organs while living of your mothers, wives, and daughters, you would talk and negotiate with the people who did that, even though they say that if they had the chance, they would continue to do this again and again and again. So understanding that the Hamas will not talk to Israel because they don't recognize Israel, they want to murder all Israelis, we need to first make away with Hamas. This is not Netanyahu policy, and I'm against Netanyahu. This is right-wing, left-wing, middle-wing, any wing Jewish policy because they want to have us annihilated, murdered, raped, killed, cut into pieces.
Abdallah, briefly.
No, hang on. Ruth, did you hear me say you need to negotiate with Hamas?
No, we need to speak with people. My entire professional life, I spoke to Palestinians. This is my policy. I believe in speaking.
Let Abdallah go ahead. Abdallah, go ahead.
No. Again, this is very typical. The minute you start to take a central position where both parties, by necessity, need to sit together. I'm talking about the Palestinian. I wasn't talking about Hamas. For me, listen, I'm talking about the Palestinian
Which
Authority.
Palestinians? Fatah?
The Palestinian Authority.
The Palestinian Authority currently represents 30% of the West Bank only.
Ruth, I can't
The
go
rest
into
wants
details.
us murdered.
No. Do you want me to go in details? I will go into details. What I'm talking about is now we have a coalition that has been elected by the Israelis. I didn't go and ask how much they represent. I say they are, at the present time, this coalition represents Israel. Now, the PA represent the Palestinian, whether they are controlling 50%, 10%, or 5%. But they are recognized by the international community and Israel that they are representing the Palestinian. So let us not play word games and focus on what needs to be done. What needs to be done for all of us to come together and find a way out. It's not going to be Hamas. No, Hamas shouldn't be in the picture. We all agree on that. But at the same time, continuing killing Palestinians is not going to be aiding nor your efforts or anybody effort.
All right, okay, both of you, do stay with me. I want to talk a bit more about Qatar in all of this, because Qatar is continuing to push for a ceasefire in Gaza. Speaking at the Doha Forum today, the State's Minister for Foreign Affairs said Qatar would continue to make payments to Gaza, even after Hamas is gone, it appears. In recent years, it has been common for Qatari diplomats to arrive in Gaza with suitcases of cash. They were supposed to pay the salaries of civil servants. Israel argues that money went straight into terrorism. Qatari funding is in the spotlight over in the United States too, amid controversies about anti-Semitism on university campuses. Well, I'd like to bring in FDD founder and president Clifford D. May. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. Qatar says it will continue to fund whoever is in power in Gaza. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts on Qatar is that we've all misunderstood Qatar for a long time. When I say all, I mean the U.S. government. I think I mean the Israeli government, academia, the media, pretty much everybody. Why? Look, we know that Qatar has been hosting leaders of Hamas. We know those leaders have been funded. They've lived luxuriously. That would make Qatar a sponsor of terrorism. But we didn't treat Qatar as a sponsor of terrorism. On the contrary, last year, President Biden made Qatar a major non-NATO ally. Huge to give that designation. And I think the idea was, okay, yes, they are hosting and funding Hamas, but they're keeping some reins on Hamas. They certainly know what Hamas is up to, what it's going to do. Either they know because they're being told or through basic intelligence, not hard to bug hotel rooms. And none of this turned out to be true. So what's necessary at this point is a full review of our relations, and certainly U.S. relations with Qatar. They shouldn't be a major non-NATO ally. They perhaps should be considered and designated a sponsor of terrorism. The U.S. probably shouldn't have a military base there. And by the way, journalists and think tankers shouldn't be going there, certainly not on Qatar's dime. And there should be no academic institutions in the United States that have campuses in Doha. All that needs to be reevaluated.
Right, of course, we know the Republican Senator Lindsey Graham is there right now. Let me bring in Abdullah Al-Junaid, Bahraini columnist and commentator for us. So, Abdullah, just looking at it from a Gulf perspective, am I right in saying that there appears to be some kind of competition between Doha and Dubai when it comes to being the ones to kind of help rebuild the future for the people of Gaza?
It's not Dubai. We have to be very careful. It's UAE and it's not Dubai. Dubai is one of the Emirates.
Sorry, Abu Dhabi. I'm sorry, Abu Dhabi.
All right. Now, it's not the matter of competition on rebuilding. We all agree rebuilding Hamas is not going to be the solution. Well, we need to rehabilitate the whole of Gaza. It's people, ground, and also aspirations. And that will require all of us coming together and doing something about that. Security, economics, social, and education. Ruth's going to love that, I'm sure. So what we need to do is those four. But to start with, now, we have UAE represented on the ground in UAE. We have Egypt next door. We have a massive humanitarian aid building on the Rafah area, okay? And we have the Jordanian, UAE, Bahrain. If you recall, Laura, it was back in 2021, you and I were discussing the money to Hamas, okay? And it was exactly weeks after Yossi Cohen, the head of Mossad, exiting the office. And he said that was the biggest mistake that this country have made by facilitating Hamas receiving that fund. It was you and I on this show that launched the accountability of Qatar for being allowed to finance Hamas. Now, financing Hamas falls on your head as Israel, the US, and Qatar. Not just Qatar, because the three parties were responsible for reaching this agreement.
Okay, Abdullah, thank you. Ruth, briefly.
I would like to start. First of all, Abdullah, thank you for saying what you had said. I appreciate it, and I say this without a millimeter of cynicism, with all honesty. I would like to sign my name under every word that was said by the director of the FDD. Qatar is a huge problem. It's a huge problem. It is financing hatred, incitement, indoctrination in the West. Leave what it's doing vis-a-vis Hamas. And by the way, it's saying outright that it wants Hamas to continue to rule and reign in the Gaza Strip, despite the fact that it is humiliating and making very miserable and poor a huge number of Palestinian Gazan civilians. I'm talking about its export of the ideology, the extreme ideology, elsewhere to the West. And it's doing it by financing colleges, universities, initiatives, and so on.
Right, because it turns out, Clifford D. May, it turns out that Qatar is the biggest foreign donor to US universities over the past 20 years. How do you explain that?
Very smart on Qatar's part. Why? Because they want to influence American opinion. They have done that through Al Jazeera. They've done that by spending money at universities, by opening campuses. This has been a huge influence operation, and I think a lot of people in America and other places have been duped by Qatar. But I think the mask is off. I think we now see Qatar for what it is, and I think we have to treat Qatar very differently going forward. And I think it's clear that certainly that look, it is Hamas, and Qatar deserves some responsibility for this, that has brought about this war and this devastation upon Gaza. Everything that's going on in Gaza, and it's just terrible, is the fault of Hamas, and Qatar is behind Hamas. they need to take responsibility for that, it seems to me. And I certainly agree with Israelis who say at this point, we now know there is no pragmatism to Hamas. We can't get along with Hamas. We will not let Hamas have any military capabilities. We will not let Hamas govern Gaza going forward, whatever else happens.
If there needs to be a responsibility taken by Israel, which has adopted not a good policy of accepting Qatar and going into this misconception of what Qatar is and allowing this money to be funneled to the Hamas, yes, there should be a responsibility taken by the Israeli policymakers as well.
Just quickly.
And the US too.
Yeah,
and the US, of course, but that was being said.
The UN is very true.
You see, the
Yes.
minute the Americans are caught with their hand in the cookie jar, all of a sudden they call morality. But while it's going on, the money is coming in for all those, policy influencer and everything. It's hanky-dory. But all of a sudden, now, after October 7th, everybody is dropping Qatar. But what is happening to business as usual for the American with regard to other issues, like Iran?
All right, very quickly, Clifford. I mean, you say the mask is slipping, but do you think that the elites in Washington are aware now of what Qatar is, and are things going to change?
I think a lot of people in the United States now and in Washington now realize that they were rather duped by Qatar. That Qatar is not what they hoped. That, for example, giving them the status of a major non-NATO ally was more of a bribe than a tip. In other words, it was not. It was because they hoped Qatar would deal differently. And to be charitable, Qatar was spending a lot of money for building things in Gaza. I think a lot of people thought surely they don't want to see the buildings they put up rubbled, as has now happened. And yes, Qatar and a lot of others were turning a blind eye to the network of tunnels that Hamas intended to use not to do anything good for the people of Gaza, but only to use as a way to kill Israelis in the hope of also killing Israel in time. Yes, I think there will be a change of attitude towards Qatar. From Washington, I certainly want to make that case here.
Thank you very much, Clifford D. May, Ruth Wasserman Landa, and of course, Abdullah Al-Junaid over in Manama. Thank you to you all. We're going to take a very short break. We will continue our coverage right after this. Stay with us.